There's been a lot of conversation circling the Ballerina Farm social media accounts, but I haven't really talked about it. Not that anyone's exactly waiting around to hear my opinion, but I haven't talked about it because I have a bit of a different take. What if Ballerina Farm is not a social media account featuring a woman who is trapped against her will, forced to do manual labor? What if Ballerina Farm isn't about a woman regressing back into old ways or societies of the past?
Did you know there's a TikTok influencer who is being controlled by her husband? People call her the Ballerina Farmer. Once a dancer, now a housewife. A rich boy saw her in an NBA game. He said she was the one. She said no again and again until his father made sure she said yes. They married. She quit dancing and her dream died quietly.
Hannah, the woman behind Ballerina Farm, has gathered a cult following of Tradwives who admire her content and see her as the epitome of Tradwife. But what if Hannah isn't the Tradwife the internet has labeled her as at all? What if in reality, Hannah is a businesswoman and Ballerina Farm is a business? A business that has built a cult following of Tradwives and aspiring homesteaders, but behind the facade, Hannah is living a lie and selling an illusion. Ultimately, Ballerina Farm is a brand and nothing more.
If you're going to build a multi-million-dollar business on charging people more than double what they normally pay for a basic product, you're going to need an airtight reputation management strategy. What Ballerina Farm is doing is very standard celebrity farmer behavior. Building a celebrity farmer brand on being a big and/or traditional family was already an old trope long before Ballerina Farm started doing it. You've got Pioneer Woman, Joel Salatin, a high percentage of the agritourism farms in your local area, all doing this.
It's just as stupid as like Tradwives coming online to be like,
I just don't speak unless my husband speaks to me.
why do you have followers? Why are you making any money? Like, go and let your husband provide for you. Why are you speaking to us? Like, did we speak to you? Did your husband let you say this right now? To complete hypocrisy to it.
Matt is on here, back with another video, here on my second channel, covering the cracks in the Ballerina Farm empire and the cult following developed from the brand. Hannah Nealman has a litany of impressive titles: a beauty pageant contestant, ballerina, her parents owned a flower shop. Daniel Nealman, heir to an airline founder, businessman, is the son of David Nealman, who founded 5 airlines, including JetBlue, and led efforts to take TAP Air Portugal private. Both Hannah and Daniel are Mormon. Hannah was still getting her BFA in dancing at Juilliard, which is a highly prestigious performing arts school, when she first met Daniel at a college basketball game.
I was instantly smitten, but it took Hannah longer to realize that we were soulmates. So we didn't see each other for 6 months after the first night we met.
It wasn't until Daniel found out that Hannah was flying back to New York City from Salt Lake City with JetBlue Airlines when they really started talking. So Daniel was like, I'm on that same flight. Hannah said, I remember checking in and them saying, you're 5A and you're 5B. I just thought, no way, that's crazy. Daniel smiles. I made a call. He had pulled strings at JetBlue, and so began their first date. According to a Times article and a blog post from Hannah, Hannah wanted to finish college first while dating Daniel, which at the time she had about a year left. But Daniel had other plans and wanted to get married ASAP.
Were you ready to get married as quickly as Daniel was?
No. In fact, I was kind of like, maybe we should just date a year, you know, and I finished school and whatever, and Daniel was like, it's not gonna work, you know, like we gotta get married now.
After about 2 months of dating in 2011, they got married, and 3 months after marriage, Hannah was pregnant with her first child.
2 months after that, she was pregnant with their first child. And so she was doing her final year at Juilliard pregnant. She was apparently the first Juilliard student in modern history to be pregnant with a baby.
They moved back to Utah so Daniel could finish his BA in history at BYU. After graduating, Daniel received a director role for his father's home security company, Vigil. Vigzul. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the name of the company. So essentially, Daniel was a major Nepo baby, but this job required them to relocate to Brazil. No offense to most history majors, but I'm pretty sure most history majors' first job out of college doesn't involve a presumably six-figure salary in Brazil for a private home security company founded by your dad and uncle. Meanwhile, during this time, Hannah started getting into social media with her own blog. Yesterday, Daniel took the afternoon off work and we went for a drive. I may or may not have had a major meltdown yesterday during lunch and told Daniel I was running away. It was quite the meltdown. Man. After about 4 years of living in Brazil, Hannah and Daniel really got into agriculture after stumbling upon a farm in Brazil during a date night. After finding this newfound passion, they decided to embark on the homesteading life, so they moved back to Utah and bought a farm. With 4 pigs, they were living out their homesteading dream. Yet it was apparently always Hannah and Daniel's dream to start a business together. The couple believed that's what happens. When you grow up, you become an adult and you start your business. Soon after marrying, they started thinking about what business to start. During the brainstorming process, the Nealmans decided whatever business they started, they would be co-CEOs and co-business partners. At the time, they didn't know exactly what their business would be, but the genesis of it was a partnership, and eventually they decided that this venture that they would found together was a farm. And Hannah posted about this journey in her blog, as well as her social media accounts. After posting about their journey in starting a farm nearly every day in 2018, Hannah started soft launching her brand, Ballerina Farm. At the time, Daniel also received a master's in business from the University of Utah, which may have helped in developing the Ballerina Farm brand. From what it looks like, this is the very first Ballerina Farm product that goes up for sale. People in the comment section were asking Hannah where to buy this shirt, and she started selling them through Venmo, which shows how small her brand was in 2018. After a year of growing their audience through consistent posting, trying to sell this farm life, and really hone in on the brand alongside expanding the farm with ducks, cows, more pigs, and farm animals, the Nealmans launched their first Ballerina Farm pop-up shop in February of 2019. 4 months later, in June of 2019, Ballerina Farm started shipping their pork direct to consumer. Bye-bye piggies. The Ballerina Farm sells meat and pork predominantly in their meat consumer products, which nowadays the primary way you buy is through their website, and you can purchase it in a frozen package. You can also build your own frozen box with anything from cinnamon roll croissants to pork lard included. This commentary channel and small farmer herself rightly points out that it's a little bit questionable that the Ballerina Farm brand never tells you exactly how much meat you're buying when you purchase their frozen meat packages.
Let's talk about the business model behind Ballerina Farms meat. They sell beef and pork. I'm going to focus more on beef just because there's more to talk about with beef. First step, we gotta find out how much their beef costs, and that is surprisingly difficult to figure out. They have lots of meat packages that you order online and they ship to you frozen. And most of them do not seem to tell you how much meat is in the package. Like this one, it looks like it's meant to be an affordable option, mostly lower demand cuts like ground meat, sausage, and stew meat, with a note that says they'll substitute cuts out depending on availability. And it's $250. How much meat do you get in this $250 package? It doesn't say.
The other, certified wild thing about Ballerina Farm is there is really nothing about the brand that makes it more natural or homegrown than other products. There's nothing different about the Ballerina Farm brand, again, as this commentary channel points out, other than just selling you the brand of Tradwife and glamorous photos of Hannah dancing through farm fields.
Is Ballerina Farms meat organic? No. What about grass-fed? Is Ballerina Farms beef worth more because it's grass-fed? Let's talk about it. Ballerina Farm says their cattle always have access to grass and pasture. But what does that mean? Well, access to pasture is what people say when you ask them, are your cows grass-fed? And they can't say yes, they say access to pasture. And I want to be clear, there is a real reason to use these wiggle words, and that reason is Utah.
The Daily Mail apparently visited the Ballerina Farm for some reason and wrote about the cows, saying, "The farm, which is nestled right in the Utah mountains, is vast and houses a red barn emblazoned with Ballerina Farm. The sprawling land is home to 120 dairy cows and 150 cows total, who go out to pasture as often as they want and are milked whenever feels necessary, sometimes by hand and sometimes by the couple's contact sensing Lely robot. Additionally, Ballerina Farm buys meat from a partner farm, so a lot of the meat they sell isn't even from their farm to begin with. On top of that, they aren't selling steaks or high-end cuts, but often low-grade cuts to people online who don't know what to look for or how to quality check.
If Ballerina Farm gets meat from other farms, how do they make sure that meat is up to their standards? Well, Ballerina Farm doesn't really have clear standards to meat in the first place. They've got some nice lines that sound like standards, like, "Our animals are never given steroids or hormones." Does this also mean the animals their partners raise? We have no idea. We will never know from this website.
Yet people often adamantly defend the Ballerina Farm prices. Ballerina Farms markets to the rich and not the poor, and they have never hid that fact with their prices. They know their stuff is expensive and that the regular person can't always afford it. You never see me in a Burberry or Louis Vuitton store because those prices are for rich people who can afford those brands and prices. Y'all need to stop chastising this woman for her products and brand, because you cannot afford it. If you want to afford it, level up in this world so you can buy nice things. Many gravitate towards the Ballerina Farm brand, feel charmed by it because it evokes the feeling of a humble family.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Growing a family farm together, selling small homegrown products. The thing is, one must wonder how much assistance was given from Daniel's family financially to start this farm and create an industry product, and whether it was their plan the entire time to create a major business from the farm and the brand they were building. As this commenter points out, Ballerina Farm is not a farm. It's a brand built on privilege, pretending to be authenticity. It's a millionaire's photo shoot disguised as homesteading, selling the illusion of hard work while real farmers break their backs to survive without luxury, kitchens, or marketing teams. Their polished image distorts public perception of agriculture, making it harder for actual working class farmers to be taken seriously or earn a living. It's not honest. It's exploitation of a lifestyle they bought into with wealth. Ballerina Farms sells high-priced goods to a luxury audience, propped up by branding and influencer clout, while real local farmers that are doing the same or more work struggle to sell eggs or meat at a fair market. Local farmers get bashed for charging fair prices that reflect real labor and costs, while Ballerina Farm charges premium or even inflated prices and gets praised for being artisanal. Even though it feels that they grew a decent audience, it really wasn't until the later years, including the 2020 lockdown, where Ballerina Farm content really took off, primarily on their main platform at the time, Instagram. On Instagram, Hannah amassed a large amount of followers, from only receiving a couple hundred likes on Instagram to the high thousands, literally overnight. Interesting. For example, here are two of the same posts, literally the same posts on Instagram. One which was in color, one which was in black and white, posted on the same day. One has 100 likes, one has 12,000. Of course, it could just be that one photo was massively, wildly liked than the other one. That happens sometimes on social media. But for it to be the same photo and have such a discrepancy in likes is a little bit interesting, a little fishy. On top of that, personally, I've rarely seen a creator who has the same, literally almost equal amount of followers on Instagram and TikTok. Even Mr. Beast has about a 40 million follower difference from TikTok to Instagram. This isn't really the point of the video, but it is something interesting to point out if you want to look into that yourself. There was a noticeable shift in Hannah's content around this time as well. It was almost like she found a new narrative to push in her audience. What was this shift in content? Well, it's fairly simple. Hannah went from posting outdoors to indoors. She went from being outside in the farm doing hard work and labor to being inside in the kitchen. It was still farm living, it was still homesteading, but it was kind of different. Yet her audience seemed to really like it, and it seemed to really push a lot of strong narratives of the Tradwife movement, though at the time it wasn't really known as such. The quick definition of the Tradwife is, according to Parent.com, Tradwife refers to a married woman who embraces traditional gender roles, particularly focusing on homemaking and supporting her husband by raising the kids, cooking, and keeping the house clean, while he serves as the primary breadwinner. Though you could argue who's the real breadwinner, since Hannah was the one making all the bread, literally.
Tradwife is a traditional wife who is in a quote-unquote traditional marriage, which means she doesn't work. work outside of the home, and she's focused on rearing her children, making food, keeping the home, deferring to her husband on all decisions. I saw one Tradwife posting about specifically politics, how she loves that she doesn't have to think about it and she can just vote for whomever her husband tells her to vote for.
Cool.
And, the thing is, choose your own choice, girl, right? Like, if this is what people want to be doing, go for it. But that's not what is happening online. And a lot of the attention has been spent on these like massive accounts like Ballerina Farms, who are very, very whitewashed, figurative and literal version of what it means to be a traditional wife. But this is something we have seen coming out of the Christian evangelical homesteader community for a long, long time. And it is this idea of, again, shifting the Overton window away from feminism.
That being said, the factual history of what traditional women actually did and our modern day conception of what traditional gender roles are seems wildly skewed, as this lovely commentary channel points out.
I spent a lot of time getting to know our history, and what Mormon women got up to back in the 1800s would be just completely unrecognizable to religious conservatives these days. So, here are some of the things they did. Trad Mormon women went to medical school, became doctors, ran their own medical practices, and invented new kinds of surgery while raising their kids. Trad Mormon women pushed the men who ran the church to get on board with vaccination and pasteurizing milk. And they won because Trad Mormon women were sick and tired of having all these kids and then watching helplessly as they died from preventable disease like smallpox and tuberculosis. Now, did Trad Mormon women get these wins by being nice and darling and persuasive and gently leading their husbands along to do the right thing? No. They beat their husbands in elections so they could just be in office and do the public health work that their husbands were slow to do. Trad Mormon women didn't do this whole like, oh, the man is the head of the household and we have to respect that thing. They didn't do that.
Also, Hannah herself has continually strongly denied that she's a tradwife. When the interviewer Aaron Vanderhoof broached the question of if Hannah was a tradwife, Hannah responded with Daniel, her husband, in the room, saying, "I don't necessarily identify with it, because we are traditional in the sense that it's a man and a woman. We have children, but I do feel like we're paving a lot of paths that haven't been paved before." Daniel Nealman was the one who pointed out and barely left her side in the interview that they're both co-CEOs, according to this article. So for me to have the label of a traditional woman, Hannah continued, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I identify with that. Hannah continued saying that she's more of a feminist, but stopped before fully saying it, probably because, in my opinion, it wouldn't be quite the right look on her image. She wasn't sure if her followers would identify with that or agree and align with that completely. I feel like I'm a feminine, she said before stopping herself. There's so many different ways you could take that word. I don't even know what feminism means anymore. We try so hard to be neutral and be ourselves, and people will put a label on everything. This is just our normal life. Hannah made a slight shift in her content from the homesteader life, you know, her getting up, milking the cows, posting selfies with the horses, living the farmer life, to the cooking for my large family, taking care of my kids, homeschooling my kids, the more tradwife kind of content. At a specific point when her content also gained massive numbers in popularity, people seem to like this type of content. This may show that people are yearning for this kind of content. Whether Hannah herself is a true representation of the true tradwife, the true homesteader or not, there's a blog post titled "What Ballerina Farm Isn't Showing You About Farm Life" that asks the question, what do you think this nostalgia for pioneering and growing one's own food says about our cultural anxieties? A woman named Amy answers, the new nostalgia for homesteading and growing your own food signals to me both a breakdown in the trust behind our food systems and how fed up people are with the commodification and corporatization of everyday life. Rural living, raising crops and livestock is a slowish way of life, and it can make it easier to reconnect with your family. Everything is commodified, but if you do something for yourself, it's at least partly stepping out of that rat race. So many of us want more meaning in our lives, want more time with our families, and those can be so hard to achieve with a corporate 9-to-5. So Hannah finds her niche of a tradwife homesteader, Mormon, ballerina, mom of 6, and that brings a whole mix of crowds, the ones that really support this lifestyle.
I wanted to provide my 2 cents on it as someone that grew up Mormon with 7 siblings in Sandy, Utah. I think unless you've experienced experience that exact lifestyle, it's really hard to comment on it. And when I say experience that means you grew up Mormon, you were a part of a big family with a lot of siblings, and you were financially secure, because it's so easy to project your own traumas on another family. Also, I think it's also very easy for us as strong, independent women to see another woman who has sacrificed so much to raise a family and say, wow, that's so sad, Hannah, I hope the best for you. I think unless Hannah is explicitly saying that she doesn't want this lifestyle, it's not necessarily our place to say whether or not that lifestyle is bringing trauma upon her or her family or her children.
As well as a crowd of people who become incredibly worried that she's trapped in this lifestyle and secretly wanting to break away and become a ballerina.
So first of all, most of us know that Ballerina Farms is so named because Hannah was a ballerina. She went to Juilliard School of Dance. She ended up actually being the first pregnant student in modern times, apparently, because Daniel didn't want to wait for their life to begin. She says, our first 3 years of marriage were really hard. We sacrificed a lot, she says, but we did have this vision, this dream, and Daniel interrupts, we still do.
Well, not to say that Hannah's marriage doesn't have a ton of red flags, objectively, but I would also argue, do you know what it's like to be a ballet dancer professionally? Because the narrative that's been thrown around that Hannah wants to run away and be a ballet dancer in New York City, I would argue often probably comes from people who were not ballet dancers and did not live that life. Because while being a professional ballet dancer is often a dream for many people, the reality of that is incredibly harsh and can be incredibly mentally damaging for many, many people.
Yeah, I mean, I danced in Brazil for 2 years, I guess professionally, after my first and second. And that was hard. Like, you give up a piece of yourself, you know. But I don't think I would change it. No. And Daniel was like, if you want to dance, you know, like, go dance, you know. Like, we were open to anything, but I knew deep down that I wanted to raise my babies, you know.
The reason why I say that is I grew up dancing ballet, and for a long period of time, I wanted to join a company. I had a few people I knew from my studio who had joined companies, and now I could be wildly off base here in the rumors I'd heard growing up about life as a ballet dancer, because a quick Google search will tell a completely different story. So let me know if I'm spreading misinformation, if you're also aware of the dance industry and how rough it is out there, because Google will say wildly different narratives about how much you can make as a ballet dancer, from $20,000 a year to $30,000 to $50,000 to even $200,000 as a principal dancer in a top city. I've never heard that number personally, and you probably have to be a top 1% celebrity level dancer to even receive that salary, in my opinion. Most dancers I know of, either way, like most professional athletes, have to stop dancing as they get older, and their body inevitably kind of wears out. I knew of someone who developed osteoporosis in their late 20s. Another person whose bones in their spine now smashed together from years of dancing. And the salaries I've heard from dancing are abysmal, more along the lines of people being hired professionally and given the role of part-time apprentices with a salary that's equated to more around $13,000.
I'm going to tell you all how much money ballerinas actually earn. You used to get paid once a month, and depending on your rank in the company would pretty much depend on how much you got paid. So when I joined the company, I was 17. I left when I was about 22. So my pay, it slightly increased when I was there, but when I started, I was on the base wage for a dancer. It was pretty much around £2,000 a month, and keep in mind, we had to pay rent on top of this. So half of my pay would literally just go to rent. I did hear that apparently the top rank, they get paid a base of £5,000 a month.
You work your entire life to become a dancer, and you have to share a cramped apartment in the city with multiple other dancers just to get by. You practice all day hoping to get a role that will prove yourself just to make it to soloist. But one mess up, one bad injury, and your entire career is over. And that's not even mentioning the and the partying and the other messed up stories I've heard that can happen in bigger cities and dance companies. Not exactly the place for a devout Mormon, but sure, Hannah yearns to go back to being a ballet dancer in a big city. That's the story we're going with. Instead of being married to the heir of a $400 million fortune. Or maybe Hannah made a calculated decision as a Mormon woman and chose this lifestyle that's more in line with her religion. It's not what some of us would have chosen, but it's what she did. That being said, of course, there are the very disturbing comments and content made surrounding Hannah and Daniel and their relationship. There's the apron incident where Hannah receives only an egg apron for her birthday from her millionaire husband.
It was my birthday present from Daniel. Hoping their tickets to Greece.
Where's it from?
I don't know, the boys took it off.
I took it off.
It's from Ukraine.
So, plane tickets? Ooh, a hat I can wear in Greece.
It's not a hat.
It's not.
Oh, my egg apron!
Eggs in it.
Great, I can gather eggs.
So cute. It's really cute. It's a cute one.
Yeah, it's the best. You're welcome.
Thanks, honey.
Not for a long time.
And the Times article where the two share their beliefs on being anti-abortion, the story that they share about Daniel stalking Hannah on a plane and them getting married shortly after, and popping out tons of children in the 13 years following. And then, scariest of all, Daniel saying that sometimes Hannah will be so tired from all the work she has to do, she'll end up bedridden for a week straight. What's most heartbreaking about all of this is, as someone who grew up dancing, though I grew up doing Vaganova style, none of that Balanchine, New York City, claw hand style. Sorry to Balanchine dancers. I'm just jealous because I messed up on stage one time dancing a Balanchine work. But I almost feel like the harsh intensity and discipline and years of training and this idea in ballet that endless suffering, honestly, and hard work constantly for hours and hours on end almost groomed Hannah for this lifestyle, as well as this idea that aesthetics are everything, that beauty is pain, and that you must always be in pain at the cost of beauty. I feel like that kind of prepped Hannah for this sort of family that she entered into, this relationship, all of it. But also, I do think it's kind of rude and misogynistic in itself to ignore the voices of women on the other side when they deny a story or come out with a story of their own. And Hannah herself has repeatedly admonished the Times article being the catalyst of people being worried that she's trapped in this relationship against her will or in an extremely abusive relationship. I think things can be nuanced. I guess to see Hannah label her entire farm, her entire life, Ballerina Farm, to identify so much with the ballet culture, to me, I can't help but see that Hannah welcomes a lot of that aspect of ballerinas or former ballet dancers' lives, where sacrifice and pain is a part of their lived experience. And that may very well be Hannah's choice, not something that her husband is pushing onto her. And the question that I kind of want to ask is it equally misogynistic to sort of create that narrative in itself? Especially when Hannah is so vehemently saying that her husband isn't doing this, that that's not the story here. Because Hannah's saying that so many parts of the article were taken out of context, that Times article. She called her and Daniel co-parents, diaper cleaners, CEOs, kitchen cleaners, which doesn't really sound like she's afraid. And it also doesn't sound very Tradwife.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a reporter come into our home to learn more about our family and business. We thought the interview went really well, very similar to the dozens of interviews we had done in recent memory. We were taken back, however, when we saw the printed article, which shocked us and shocked the world by being an attack on our family and my marriage, portraying me as oppressed, with my husband being the culprit. This couldn't be further from the truth. Nothing we said in the interview implied this conclusion, which leads me to believe the angle taken was predetermined. For Daniel and I, our priority in life is God and family. Everything else comes second. The greatest day of my life was when Daniel and I were married 13 years ago. Together, we have built a business from scratch. We've brought 8 children into this world and have prioritized our marriage all along the way. We are co-parents, co-CEOs, co-diaper changers, kitchen cleaners, and decision makers. We are one. And I love him more today than I did 13 years ago. We have many dreams still to accomplish. We aren't done having babies. We are excited for our new farm store to open, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for the rest of it. But for now, I'm doing what I love most, being a mother, wife, a businesswoman, a farmer, a lover.
There are theories on Reddit that the Mormon Church also encouraged Hannah and Daniel to promote this lifestyle through essentially giving them a calling because it looks good for the church. They claim that through their experience, the Mormon Church would encourage people to be involved in social media, especially if you're attractive and talented and lifted up values of the prosperity gospel. If you're faithful, the Lord will provide. Hannah and Daniel Nealman seem like the perfect representations of that, but it's nearly impossible to verify these claims. They're just speculation, especially coming from someone like me who's not a member of the Mormon Church. Through all of the online noise, who is the true Hannah Nealman? What's the purpose of Ballerina Farm? What if Hannah Nealman is nothing that the online commentary world has speculated on? What if she's not a trapped, unhappy wife? And what if she's not a devotedly happy tradwife? My personal opinion is that much of the concept of tradwife is a lie in the modern age. Statistics show that women are starting to out-earn men, but also overall, most people and families are living paycheck to paycheck. This means that anyone who is choosing to have a family dynamic where one person stays home to play out a traditional fantasy is already in a more privileged position. Maybe that's why the homesteading, tending to the family, stay-at-home lifestyle content does so well. Ultimately, it's actually a complete fantasy that's unattainable for most working class Americans. On top of that, most stay-at-home mothers I've spoken to don't stay at home because it's their most ideal situation. They stay at home usually for a combination of reasons, but the biggest factor has become a financial reason. Bottom of the line, daycare is expensive, and it literally can be more cost-effective at times for one member of the family to stay at home with the children than it can be for children to be at daycare with both family members working. But let's also examine the facts of Hannah's lifestyle to see if it aligns with the tradwife ideals. Hannah claimed her and her husband co-founded their operation. So essentially, Hannah started a large farming operation, shipping millions of dollars worth of meat.
Shipping out baked goods box and a beautiful weekly special. I'm gonna show you. We have a smaller box and a larger weekly special. This is the large weekly special box. It's coming with an assortment of ground beef and ground pork. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of our dry-aged ground beef. It's packaged in 1 pound packages. And we have 2 pounds of ground pork, which I love mixing ground beef and ground pork. I also have 1 pound of our pork breakfast sausage, which is just ground pork plus spices.
Running a multi-million follower social media account, which is a business that many people are paying a lot of money to get involved in. She now has a standalone store with baked goods and participates in a ton of magazine shoots, essentially working as a model. It doesn't sound like Hannah is a traditional stay-at-home sort of wife. It sounds like she's working multiple jobs and running multiple businesses, probably doing more than most CEOs do. Tradwifism is the cult movement that Hannah and so many other creators of their faith and culture may want to cultivate in their audience, but she's not a tradwife. Hannah essentially is just an actor. Hannah is a performer in other ways as well, so this shouldn't be a surprise.
It's just as stupid as like tradwives coming online to be like, I just don't speak unless my husband speaks to me, and I just stay at home like making everything from scratch. And it's like, then why are you making a video? Why do you have a career? Why do you have followers? Why are you making any money? Like, go and let your husband provide for you. Why are you speaking to us? Like, did we speak to you? Did your husband let you say this right now? It's a complete hypocrisy to it. So they're making money off of telling other women not to have a job. They're securing their independence. Like, these women are making bank. And so if they go on to have any problems in their relationship, they've got the money to go and leave. But they're encouraging other women not to speak, not to grow in any way, not to secure themselves financially.
Hannah's a ballet dancer, and since 2010, Hannah Nealman has competed in 4 beauty pageants. In fact, Hannah competed for Miss American 2023 less than 2 weeks after having her 8th child, just bringing back the definition of Tradwife as people have defined it, which is essentially staying home and taking care of the kids. Does competing in beauty pageants mix super well with that? I would argue instead, Hannah is a master at show business and social media is another medium for her craft. Alongside her Tradwife brand, Hannah was featured in a bunch of magazines and articles like Evie, Cowgirl, multiple Times articles, including their top 100 creators list, as well as Vanity Fair, to name a few. She was literally working it in magazines and modeling, which is also, well, work. Though in her content, Hannah may make it appear like she's doing it all on her own, the reality is she has a team of employees who help her with all the labor in her household. According to the Salt Lake Tribune, a few also claim that Hannah Nealman must employ a small childcare army, hidden off screen. She's maintained that she has no nannies, although she has had other employees, including farm workers, a personal assistant, a babysitter for date night, and a teacher to homeschool 5 of her children in a 1-room classroom. That kind of sounds like a small childcare army, a bigger childcare army than most people have. So Hannah is essentially a girl boss who advertises and cultivated an army of tradwives, but she's not actually a tradwife. That being said, to speak more on the actual concept of Hannah being the face of Ballerina Farm, embracing traditionalism and the co-CEO aspect, some articles say that Ballerina Farm is led by Daniel Nealman, Hannah's husband. But either way, the business has grown into a multi-million-dollar business with an estimated annual income between $6.5 million and $8.3 million. This success is driven by diverse revenue streams, including meat and produce sales, social media earnings, and ventures in agro-tourism. Hannah Nealman's personal net worth has been estimated at $2.5 million due to the value of her social channels and her farm share. Daniel Nealman's net worth, on average, has been estimated at around $6 million. Though the Nealman family net worth is at around $400 million. Hannah and Daniel are not traditional, humble farmers. They have always had the privilege and flexibility that wealth affords them. Here's a hero response to David Nealman on the New York Times Insta article. So you're insinuating that the majority of farmers in this country don't work hard enough, and that's why they can't afford to buy a $3 million property and invest in a $5 million dairy barn? Really? You're insisting they don't have a safety net in their familial wealth, collateral, and investments, that they made millions selling checks, notes, sourdough starter, and meat from a handful of cows? Gee, if it's that easy, why isn't every farmer a millionaire? Meanwhile, dairy farms like my dad's, which has been operating since the late 1800s, cannot even operate anymore due to the realities actual farmers face. Listen, there's nothing wrong with helping your kids, but let's acknowledge privilege. It would be amazing if this family could do more to highlight the farmers they source from, highlight the struggles of generational family farms that don't have private investment behind them. That would be a whole lot more authentic than whatever this is. An insult to farm ranch wives everywhere. Hot take. I initially wasn't going to say anything, but I can't stay quiet any longer. I'm a ranch wife. I'm a mom. I am employed full-time. This is not for the weak. Ballerina Farm likely paid for their cattle, buildings, equipment in cash. It doesn't work like that in the real world of agriculture. Most of us have hundreds of thousands in debt and struggle to get by every year. The sacrifices that women have made to support their farming ranching husbands are unreal, but they've been doing so for decades. Amid shrinking acreages, farmers are using agro-tourism to increase revenue, but Hannah and Daniel are now eating up the lion's share of the market, using their existing wealth from the Nealman fortune fortune to get ahead in the farming and social media world and dominating the industry, not only promoting their farm through social media, using their fortune to get ahead, but now getting into agrotourism. It'll be a place people can come and see agriculture in action, Daniel says, the Ballerina Farm agrotourism site. I don't want it to be a petting zoo. I want it to feel like a working farm. You come and see a pig, and 6 months later, that pig will not be there, right? He's moved on. He's now bacon. Most of the animals on the farm will live part of their life there. Hannah and her whole family moved to Ireland for 12 weeks for Hannah and Daniel to attend cooking school.
Today, our family is headed out on a very big adventure. We will be away for some time, which means there has been a lot of packing and organizing to keep things running at the farm while we're away. We got all packed up, and on our way to the airport, we made our way first to New York. Then from New York, we flew to London, and then we had one more connecting flight after that. When Daniel was younger, his dad founded JetBlue, so it's always special when we get to fly with them.
They paid $20,000 each for the school while developing their brand. This privilege and flexibility is the very thing that allowed them to not only start their farm at the level and pace that they did, but also launch the Ballerina Farm brand on a mass scale across social media, which developed the Tradwife cult following that Ballerina Farm gained into what it is today. And ultimately, Hannah amassed an army of more than 20 million followers across TikTok and Instagram. She went from a ballerina in New York City to a social media tycoon in the matter of 5 years. She has her own brand, 328-acre ranch, meat to sell, and even her own standalone store that sells sourdoughs, ice cream, cupcakes, etc. Through the TikTok shop alone, Hannah has sold 70,000 individual items, which brought her about $4 million. And that's what a lot of her content is now, promotions. Something that is hard to find concrete data on, but impossible to stop seeing in your algorithm once you start searching for it, is the prevalence of Ballerina Farm products on TikTok, largely due to Ballerina Farm selling on the TikTok shop. This means TikTok creators can advertise the products and receive commissions. At first, I started looking up Ballerina Farm products on Hannah's TikTok herself and all the products that she was advertising. Hannah is constantly holding up her protein powder in her TikToks. She also started posting about her new electrolytes. And once I saw her TikToks, I started seeing other influencers pop up all over my TikTok feed, advertising Ballerina Farm products. Like they were the greatest products ever. Just some of the products I remember seeing were protein powders, like tons of Ballerina Farm protein powders. People love advertising the Ballerina Farm protein powders. I wonder if this is an easy product for Ballerina Farm to sell because, well, whey comes from milk and they have a crap ton of cows and a dairy. Now also there's the Ballerina Farm electrolytes. I want to say I saw the sourdough starter pack on TikTok as well. The Weck jars, which are just so expensive, $18 for 2, which is way more expensive than the mason jars that I have at home. And of course, as you can guess, all of this stuff is expensive. The Farmer Protein Flavor Bundle is $180. If you want to buy their electrolytes, it's gonna run you $40. Of course, this is all before shipping and taxes. Sourdough Essentials is gonna be $44. Don't get me wrong, I've always been interested in making sourdough, but I am not paying $44 to make sourdough that I can buy for way less. I'm not doing that. I remember I tried to make French bread and I did an okay job. And then after I thought, that took about a couple hours of my life and it tastes exactly like what I would have bought in store, to be honest. And that was really disappointing because I expected it to be like at least a little better, like at least taste fresh and homemade and not like something that I could have just bought at the store. You can buy their high protein farm flour for $15. Apparently, that's why. I guess the high protein flour is good for sourdough. Here is their description for their electrolytes because I accidentally clicked on it and it sounds interesting. I guess they're just trying to make everything in line with the farmer brand. Hydrate like a farmer. We keep our cattle hydrated with salt blocks they lick throughout the day, and we made Farmer Hydrate with the same ideas in mind. Organic coconut water, French sea salt, and 100% real fruit come together for a natural boost of minerals and electrolytes. You're saying I should have your product to feel like a cow licking a salt block? Okay. Recently, Hannah launched the Ballerina Farm in-person store in Midvale, Utah. The Business of Fashion wrote an article about the store's opening, saying, "But when it comes to Ballerina Farm, the lifestyle brand she launched with husband Daniel Nealman, she's enlisted a staff of 60, including multiple chefs, to develop her brand's growing array of food, home, body, and wellness products. It definitely doesn't happen without a team behind you," said Nealman while serving cups of homemade buttermilk at a preview of her brand's new store in May. The farm store was a massive success, with people from all over coming to the store to buy Ballerina Farm products and document the experience online. Though there was one woman who found a fly in her cupcake.
Okay, Ballerina Farms, count your days. So we go and I get a little cupcake thing. I'm eating it. I look down. Guess what's baked into this cupcake? A dead fly. And I'm gonna post a little picture here.
And honestly, it doesn't seem like these women were too blown away by whey lemonade.
I do not like that at all. Oh. Ew, I do not like that at all.
I think the Nealmans might be taking the concept of putting whey in everything a little bit too far. On top of that, the locals have been frustrated with the opening of the new store, which they claim has caused the town to become overrun with wannabe tradwives. Thoughts on the Ballerina Farm store from someone who's from Midway. "I'm so glad this sub exists because I need somewhere to talk about this. I'm from Midway, and while it's always been slightly touristy, it's never been like Park City, and for good reason. The town cannot support a large number of tourists. Since this store is opened, there's been a very obvious shift. We cannot even get out to Main Street on weekends to enjoy the local businesses because the whole place is literally overrun by wannabe tradwives. This is a prime example of billionaires getting whatever they want despite what it does to local communities. I have not spoken to a single local who's in support of this over-glorified grocery store, and very few have even visited it. I never liked Hannah, but this store just shows how little she cares about anyone but herself. So Ballerina Farm is just selling the dream many have of a tradwife and rural living. It's an idea, an image, but it's not reality. While many have speculated on the true reality Hannah is living, with dark imagery of a controlling husband, I would speculate personally that Hannah's life might be a lot more similar to ours, just richer. That of course means that Hannah lives within a patriarchy, that her husband is a rich asshole. What's new? But it also means that Hannah has to do marketing meetings, speak with a manufacturer and distributor. She has to come out with new products, manage her farm with her husband and her entire household. She has to promote all of her endeavors on her social media and make sure she's keeping up with her brand image. For all of that, Hannah feels more like the newer girl boss than she does a tradwife. And that's all for my theory on Hannah, Ballerina Farm, and her cult of tradwives. Let me know if you agree and what your thoughts are. I'd love to know if you like this setup or the setup with my bookshelves. I feel like this one might be less distracting and maybe more cozy vibes. I can kind of kick back a little bit more easily, and I'll see you in the next video.